Sell all your crypto. It's going to zero, and take the money and put it all into gold, silver, and commodities. That is exactly what my guest said on the 10th of October. And since the 10th of October, the market is down. Bitcoin's down 40%. The alts have taken a bloodbath, down 70%. At the same time, gold's up 42% and silver's up over 200%. So he could have had a point. And the thing is that he's still saying that he's going to short crypto to zero and carry on riding the commodities trade, because the commodities trade is the biggest trade of life. So we've got a real treat today. We've got a guest coming on. His name's Brendan. Here he is. And we're going to be discussing his trade and why he executed the trade like he executed the trade, and whether he continues to believe that crypto is going to go to zero. So we've got a massive show for you guys today. Let's get the show on the road, guys. You know me, I don't get many people onto the show. Like every now and then I'll get a trader on the show, and if I do get a trader on the show, then it usually is a very good trader. And I've been following Brendan for a long time, and I can tell you that I have never seen a trader that's nailed it so perfectly on such a big time range. I remember when he actually posted his video back at the time, I thought to myself, this guy is going to get wrecked. When he posted a video back then, I don't remember which video it was, but he kind of said, look, he was shorting crypto to zero, and he was going all in on the metals. And I kind of thought to myself, this guy's crazy. But in hindsight, that was a perfect decision. And now, as you can see, as of the 29th of January, which was 4 days ago, he says, crypto, the rotation is not happening. I'm still shorting it to zero. But on the other hand, he's teaching people how to print millions of dollars in gold and silver every single day. So today, we're going to spend some time talking to Brendan. We're going to find out exactly why he said what he said, exactly how he got the strategy, exactly how he trades. And yeah, let's get that done. If you are new to the channel, just subscribe to the channel if you're not already one of the 1.18536 or 352 subscribe. Did 15 people just leave? That's very rude. And if you are subscribed, just smash the like button so we can get distribution of this content. I'm not going to waste much more time. Let's get Brandon on the show. Brandon, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. How about you?
I remember the time that you made that call. It was just after we spoke on the phone. I don't know if you remember. We had a call internally, and then the markets were still running in those days. And then you basically pivoted and you said, I'm going all in on commodities and I'm shorting Bitcoin and crypto to zero. I'm very interested to know why you said that.
Yeah. So also, I mean, if you follow my channel for a while, whenever I say I'm shorting it to zero, it's like not literally zero. It's just a way to get people to watch, and it's basically to express like how bearish I am in the moments. But
so you don't actually think that Bitcoin's going to zero, but you do think that Bitcoin isn't going to go up for the next period, right?
I have a hard time. So my trading system involves around not speculating as much as possible and basically just reacting to the market and trying to think about the market as objectively as I can. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing us getting back to all-time highs at any point. I think it's pretty unlikely.
And tell me, like, when you say that, what makes you say that? Are you looking at a specific chart? Are you looking at a specific chart structure? What's helping you make that decision? Maybe share your screen so you can show it to us.
Yeah, I'll share my screen right now. Let me see.
Okay, so we'll just wait for him to share his screen. There we go. Okay, so tell us, what are you seeing here?
Okay, so for context, my trading system involves a few different criteria I use. So it first involves market structure. So this is the idea. It's like an objective concept where if a chart is printing like higher highs and higher lows, that's a bullish market structure. So for example, something like this back in August of 2024 all the way up to late 2024, that was a bullish market structure. We were printing higher highs, higher lows the entire time. And something like, for example, the market structure from the beginning of the year, so like March 2024 all the way till August 2024, that's a bearish market structure because you're putting in lower highs, lower lows the entire time.
Sure.
So this is an important concept. I know it's very simple, but it's very important because it helps inform a lot of the directional bias that I use in the markets. And it also helps you sort of, quote unquote, like sell the top, is when you start to see this idea that a chart is printing some sort of reversal or some sort of break out of the trend. So this is an important concept I use alongside ideas of like high time frame support and resistance. So those are the two big concepts I use in my trading system. And other concepts I use include stuff like relative strength, like momentum, narrative, stuff like that. But these are the only assumptions I use in my system. And that's really important to understand because I try to be as objective as possible. And when we look at something like Bitcoin, right, thus far it's been uptrending for the past 3 years up till very recently. And the reason why we've been uptrending for the past around like 3 years was mostly because of catalysts. So if you guys remember, right, all the way back in 2023, we had this pump right here. And this pump right here, all the way back in the day right here, was caused, I don't know if Ron, if you remember the 𝗕𝗟𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗏 intern that
Yes.
tweeted out like the fake news. So it was like the rogue
the ETF, yes.
Yeah. So that was something that I remember very distinctly. And the market looked pretty precarious at the time. It looked like it was actually potentially breaking this like 25K level right here. But then after that, 𝗕𝗟𝗢𝗙𝗏 intern tweeted that, it was the fake news. So the price pumped to like 30K from like 25K. And then it reverted the pump because people realized, oh, it's fake news, right? Like the ETFs didn't actually approve. But then afterwards, people are like, okay, so this actually isn't priced in. So the ETFs, the institutions will be buying, the ETFs will launch. And then we got this pump all the way up till the ETF launch. And so this move to 49K here was because of the ETFs. That was on the day of the ETFs, actually. It was a sell the news event. And then afterwards, right, we ended up printing above here. And then once we reclaimed that level, we actually pumped significantly to around 70Ks. And that was resistance for a long time. So this was back in 2024 when we were downtrending for like the majority of the year. And then we liquidated to 49K. So we actually held that level. That was the ETF sell the news event right here. So this 49K level held on the retest, and then we actually ended up reclaiming the all-time highs at 74K because of Trump's election, right? So that was the big news, and then that sent us to around 100K, and then we ended up selling the inauguration. So I actually shorted this when Trump got elected because typically whenever I see price whenever I see the chart pricing in news and I see a significant move into the news, I actually like to sell or short those events. And then we got that sort of inauguration short all the way till April. And then that low held. So the previous all-time highs of the Trump election actually held right here. And then we ended up pumping because of the DAT situation, right? We ended up pumping after the uncertainty of the tariffs, and then we had the DATs that summer, and then we pumped because of the digital asset treasuries. And so this is where I actually was beginning to get pretty bearish. So right around here. And the reason why is because we had multiple sweeps of all-time highs. Anytime we fail to reclaim all-time highs, that's a pretty big signal to me that the market is likely going to reverse pretty soon, right? Like if we were to be bullish, right, we would actually have reclaimed these all-time highs with strength. We would actually be trading above here like this. We'd be putting in that bullish market structure. But then when we start to put in these, equal highs, and then we get these sweeps of these highs, that's typically not a good sign. And especially when we start to lose these range lows, right? Like these previous range highs that became what would become range lows, we actually start losing them. That's a pretty big sign. I mean, we haven't done that for over the course of the past 3 years. And of course, we got the events on October 10th where the market crashed and all the altcoins went down like 80%. And so from there, I was like, okay, so there's not really any more catalyst left in crypto, right? We already had the institutions buying, we had the ETFs, we had Trump buying, we had Trump's meme coin, right? Trump's family and all the digital asset treasuries trying to basically use as many Ponzi-nomics financial mechanisms as possible to print money. I mean, there's not really much left in terms of the crypto native catalyst I could see. And given the significance of these all-time high breaks and the sweeps, I guess, and the failures to make new all-time highs and then that crash, I was thinking it was very, very likely that we've topped out for a long time. And that's exactly what sort of happened.
Okay, and so what would you be looking for? What is the level that you think when you look at the charts? Do you look at like a level where you think this could potentially reverse, or are you looking at this day by day by day and kind of saying, look, if the chart turns and we put in a higher high, that will be my invalidation level? Because I'm sure you believe that at some point crypto will come back, right? Maybe I know you keep saying you're shorting it to zero, but I guess that at some point you think it's going to come back. It's just not now.
It's hard to say. I don't necessarily think it comes back. It could, who knows? I'm not necessarily saying it won't, but at this moment, I'm not expecting that it will. And the main reason why, just look at the objective performance, right? If you look at the 12-month chart, we see the performance here, right? So Bitcoin on the 12 months. So last year, it's down, almost like 6.5%, right? But if you look at, for example, every single other objective metric, like for example, the S&P 500, right? The S&P 500 was up 16%, silver was up 150%, gold is up 65%. So all of these other indexes or major references in the markets, all of these assets are moving up last year, right? And that was in a risk-on period. And Bitcoin at this point can be kind of treated as growth beta at that sort of time frame. And we see that Bitcoin underperforms during risk-on environments, and it's also underperforming when the market is risk-off, right? When there's macro uncertainty with the tariffs, with the rates going down, and metals pumping. And so I think it's objectively underperformed recently, and I think that's because there's so much supply overhang from the DATs, right? I think it's hard for institutions to want to take the risk on crypto when there's so many institutions that potentially have sell pressure because of the fact that they acquired all these cryptos from the digital asset treasuries, and all of their market net asset values are approaching 1 or even below 1. So when they sell, that just creates a lot of sell pressure that creates risk that I think a lot of institutions don't necessarily want.
So, I mean, is there any level on your charts which kind of says to you, okay, this could be a Bitcoin bottom? Or like, I know you're saying it's going to zero. I know you don't mean it's going to zero, but are you saying like we've just broken down, say, below the $80,000 level? Was that a significant level? Mm-hmm. Like, would you be shorting it here? Have you got the courage to? Are you short?
Yeah, so I'm still short. I did take profits because I've been short for a long time. So I shorted up here back in October, and also shorted actually over here back in earlier this month at around 94K. And the level that you're referencing really for me is around 72 to 74K. And the reason why is, I've actually been talking about this for a long time in my videos, but this is pretty much the do or die level here. If this level does not hold, right? So this was the level that was breached when Trump was elected, right? This was resistance after the ETFs, and then reclaimed after Trump got elected, and then retested again once we bottomed out during the April tariffs right down here. So if we don't survive this retest right here, I think it looks very, very bad. I think this opens up the possibility of a gap fill all the way back down, potentially to around the 40 or 50Ks right here. I think that would be pretty much signaling that it's pretty much over for a long time. I still think it's pretty much over, but I don't know if this holds. I think like we may see like a potential bounce here, but eventually I think this probably gives.
And I mean, do you pay any attention to the 4-year cycle and the 200-week moving average? And if you look at the 200-week moving average, that's kind of like a level that, for all intents and purposes, Bitcoin's kind of respected to a certain extent over the years. Do you pay any attention to those levels?
So actually, I don't really incorporate those ideas very much in my analysis, and I try to keep things as simple as possible. So the factors that I mentioned earlier with regards to high time frame market structure, support and resistance, the ideas of narrative, momentum, those kinds of factors. I try to keep things as objective as possible. I think moving averages can be pretty noisy and difficult to kind of interpret. And a lot of times I see people trying to use different chart patterns like bull flags and like all these other, or like maybe they'll use some indicators like maybe like Elliott wave or other things. I think it gets very complicated unnecessarily. So I try to keep things as simple as possible. So as you can see, like I don't really have that many things on my chart other than these lines, and these are like very high time frame levels, and that's pretty much it. And I try to keep things very simple. Yeah.
Okay, so you said that you were shorting Bitcoin and crypto to zero, but at the same time you said you were buying commodities, which was a genius trade. Do you still think the commodities trade is a good trade, or do you think that trade's over? I mean, Silver's pretty much put in a parabola. Gold's put in a parabola. Like, how do you see the rest of the metals trade?
Yeah, so the main reason why I longed, right, was because for me, my trading system revolves around asymmetry. So asymmetry is basically the idea that whenever I do anything, like whether it's trading or otherwise, or even just other activities, I try to do things in terms of finding asymmetric opportunity where my risk is defined and low and my upside is comparatively high. And so I think this is a really important concept that people may think is obvious, but they don't really employ in their day-to-day lives or even when they trade. And for me, this asymmetry is really sort of predicated on the idea of longing all-time high breakouts. I actually got a lot of flack on Twitter from people who were like, this guy's buying all-time highs, like that's terrible, like he's not going to make it, and he's shorting the bottom of crypto XYZ. But unfortunately, right, how it's been working, it's been a very important heuristic is that typically whenever we see all-time high breaks, for example, this break at 3,500 on gold, this was a very important all-time high break, and one where you can define invalidations very easily, right? Anytime you take a trade, anytime I take a trade, I want to make sure that I can define invalidations appropriately, where I can actually see, right, like right here, if we don't break out, then I can cut the trade for a very small loss, because if there's no momentum above a key level, then I know like the market's reacting poorly. I can cut the trade very, very easily. But if it does put in a good reaction, right, if we do reclaim those all-time highs, objectively, that's a very bullish signal. And we likely see a asymmetric move much, much higher than any downside it could actually take. And so I think this was a concept that I used when I saw gold sort of putting in this, this basically this higher highs and higher low structure where we were actually range bound for about a month, but putting in higher lows here. Pretty good indicator for me that once you reclaim this level, that we'd actually see a significant move. So that's when I started positioning in gold back in September of last year. And of course, we kept getting, this bullish market structure the entire way up. And then same with silver, right? I mean, for silver, it's even more apparent because this is actually a like 45-year all-time high, right? Like $50 was a level that had not been breached for many, many years. So as soon as I saw that we got that good reaction above, I was like, okay, this is a pretty good sign for me to rotate over to silver. Just as an objective play, right? We have that all-time high break. And of course, pretty much every single day from there have been able to put in those higher highs, higher lows. And there are many objective setups along the way. Yeah.
I agree with you. But the question is, what do we do now? Like there's been a parabola, there's been a breakdown, and now silver's gone back to $88 or wherever silver is. Like now, how do you see the trade? If you're coming into the market, in terms of your trading system, would you go long, would you go short, or are you staying out of the trade?
Yeah, so at this point, I guess some context needed. So for a while, I actually was using a setup that was very important that I don't see enough people talking about. It's pretty actionable. So it's something that I basically called the New York Open or CME Open setup. So every morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, the market's open, right? And alongside, the CME that opens at, it closes at 5 p.m. on the weekends and opens, on the weekdays and opens again at 6 p.m. And it also opens at 6 p.m. on Sundays as well. But basically, these these time zones are basically areas of volatility. And the reason why I mention this is because virtually almost every single day over the past few weeks, we got these moves down to these key levels where around that time period, right, around 9:30 on the open, it's basically provided some sort of low, and then it's pumped almost every single time. And even as of yesterday at 18 o'clock, or I guess that was 6 p.m., right, yesterday, we got this move right here on silver. So it basically provided that bottom, and we actually pumped since then. So the reason why I mention this is because, yeah, I think that the trend for now, like if you look at most time frames, except for like very high time frame, it's broken structure, right? So like we've been putting in these higher highs, higher lows, and then we actually put in this lower low, and then we actually sort of just, puked from there. So yeah, I think like it's probably going to take some time to heal. And I would like to see more structure develop from here, right? We sort of retested this like $70 area right here, and we've actually put in a pretty big move here today, but really just looking for these time zones of interest, right? CME Open, New York Open, to help form these invalidations, to help basically help you like scale into these low time frame setups that allow you to gain exposure to this narrative.
And okay, so are there any charts that you're looking at now which you're kind of saying this is the same trade as getting into gold and silver back in October? Like, are there any charts that you're looking at that have broken all-time high, or that look like they're in great structure, or that you'd be jumping into right now because you think that they've got that asymmetric return that you spoke about, just like you spoke about Bitcoin having a negative asymmetric return, and then you spoke about the commodities having an asymmetric return? Is there anything that any chart that you're looking at right now that's doing that?
It's tough to say. So there's a couple things. I mean, you could actually say that about Bitcoin, but if you invert the chart. So this is something I use a lot, where I'll just invert the chart. So if I do it right now, right here, this looks pretty good to me. I think this looks like an imminent breakout to me. Like if you presented this chart to me objectively, I would say like, yeah, if we reclaim this level, it looks pretty good for upside. So I think like this is the trade you could take if we end up like quote unquote like reclaiming, right? Like this level right here looks pretty good. But I would say
scary.
It's hard for me to...
It's very scary when you look at it that way. Because I must say, like,
Yeah.
Everyone has waiting for a bounce, but when you invert the chart, and like if I saw that other chart, I would buy that other chart. Like if you hit the name, I would buy the other chart. I would buy that chart.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've showed this chart to a lot of people. I've tried to invert the chart as many times as possible because I guess a lot of people are biased to the upside, and I can understand that because people would like to believe in crypto and they've been holding it for a while and they want to see those returns. But this looks very bullish to me. It looks like a sweep of those lows. It looks like we've been forming a range and continuously reclaiming that range.
Sure.
And I think it looks like this chart's going to go to the top right hand corner. But in reality, I think it's tough because I guess, yeah, the commodities trade has gone pretty parabolic. I think there could be more legs left, but that is yet to be determined. I think really, right, I don't, this isn't necessarily the focus of the stream, but a lot of my investments actually that I've been making have mostly been in private markets in robotics and AI. They're not exactly public market, stocks that you can just buy. There's no ticker, but they're companies that are not yet public. So for example, like if you had invested in like OpenAI or Anthropic or SpaceX over the past few years, you'd be up like 20x. And for those kinds of companies are the ones actually mostly buying.
Agree. And tell me something, copper. What about copper? So everyone says that copper is like been, first it goes gold, then it goes silver, then it goes copper. Like, how do you see the copper trade?
It's tough. So I have it right here. I mean, I guess it looks pretty okay on the high time frame, but I haven't bought copper and I probably won't. I guess there was this one day last year where there was some like tariff or something where the chart went down by a lot. But for the copper trade, I don't necessarily believe that we'll see a meaningful rotation. Maybe we will, but the problem is that it's pretty illiquid. So with gold and silver, right, these are assets that are the largest in the world, right? The top two assets. So it's very liquid. You can basically have unlimited size. But with copper, I mean, I was actually having a hard time buying it. There's some ETFs that allow you to get exposure, but they're not particularly liquid. And the price action seems a lot weaker than gold and silver. So I don't think that it's a good trade from that metric where I see better opportunities where the chart looks better on gold and silver. It looks much more sort of, aligned with my system.
What about the S&P 500? So when I look at the S&P 500, it kind of feels overheated to me. I wonder how you see the S&P 500. Is it a market that's on an uptrend? Is it a market that one could be investing in, or is it a market that looks overheated to you?
Yeah, I mean, so it looks fine to me, right? Until it starts putting in lower highs and lower lows, that's when you should probably start to question that, right? But for now, it seems to be continuously in an uptrend. It's hard to fade this kind of chart. The reason why I try not to time tops too well, right? I'm not necessarily trying to get the absolute peak of top, is because usually I look for objective signs of reversal where we start to see.
So what would be? Yeah, what would be? Would your objective sign of reversal there be that level just between 6.6 and 6.4? So like 6,500. Is that when you, if the S&P corrected to under that level where your cursor is now, is that when you would call? Then is that when you would basically scream out, "It's time to sell this thing"?
I think that would make sense. I think if we actually started to put in some bearish structure and then we start actually losing this level right here, I think that's a pretty decent sign that it might be time to get out. Right? Who knows, right? Like the S&P is hard to fade because it's been up only for like the past 100 years, right? So it's a difficult chart to necessarily sell. But I think, yeah, on those short time frames, maybe like a time frame of maybe weeks or months, it would make sense that if we actually start to see some break out of this trend and we start to see that level break at 65.40ish, I think that would be a good sign that it's probably topped out for a little bit.
Okay, but on that theory, then you're basically saying it's probably time to sell silver because silver did definitely put in a lower low, right? That, I mean, no matter which way you look at that chart's put in a lot of lower lows.
Well, on that time frame, on like maybe the 4-hour time frame, yeah. So like, for example, I was selling a lot of silver on the way up, and especially once we failed to bounce here, because this this was the first the first sell-off we had on silver, and then we could not make a higher high, right? We made a lower high right here. And then the chart looked very heavy, right? Like this is not price action you want to see when you are trying to long something that's trending up for so long. So that was the first time like, yeah, I should probably sell this. And especially once we actually got, those cascading liquidations. But if you look, I mean, the high time frame chart still looks great, right? This is still an uptrend. So objectively speaking, right, if you compare this chart to something like Bitcoin, it is a much better chart where it's actually putting in higher highs, higher lows. Bitcoin has been,
on the
not doing
bigger
the same
time
thing.
frame. On the bigger time frame.
Yeah.
What would tell you on the bigger time frame, where would you deem the silver trade finished?
I think if we start to lose the lows that we put in here, so if we start to lose there's like the $70 lows, I think that would be a pretty good sign. But especially if we actually fall back below this like $54 level, that was the initial all-time high break, right?
Yes.
If we start to lose like the mid 50s or the low 50s, I mean, that's definitively finished, right? Because that was the origin of the whole breakout, like the 50-year breakout or whatever. So if we lose that level, I think it's pretty much over. And same with gold, right? Gold was, I mean, I think this 3,500 level is the main level here. But even so, if we start losing this like 4,500 or $4,400 level right here, that would be a pretty good sign that the momentum's gone for probably a long time.
Wow. Okay. Any other charts that you're looking at? Any other charts that you're buying right now? Any other charts where you see a screaming buy or a screaming sell?
So the only crypto chart that I really think has some potential is Hyperliquid. It looks okay. I mean, this high time frame chart doesn't look the best. It's still downtrending. It's still underperformed for a lot of last year. But objectively, I mean, if we do reclaim this like $35, $36 level, this looks pretty good. And it's showing the most relative strength of any other asset. So this is something that I'm interested in buying if we actually see this sort of reclaim, potentially to gap fill back up. But for now, I'm pretty defensive. I think it doesn't make as much sense to actually play the markets on the long side. I think for crypto, it's best to short this kind of market because it's weak relatively to almost everything. Like you can see like the New York just opened, right? And the S&P is kind of puking a little bit, but if you can see, crypto is actually doing much worse. And if you zoom out, right, like this looks very precarious. This doesn't look very convincing to me that this is going to bounce. So I actually do expect us to actually continuously dump. Maybe we sweep this level, maybe we actually come back up. But I think eventually the big short to capture is really this short down here. So I think anytime that you're able to see that breakdown and see some structure below, I think that's a pretty good short to take.
So I have a question for you. I mean, you're a chartist. Do you have any like fundamental view on Bitcoin? Like, do you think Bitcoin's a store of value? What do you think Bitcoin is? Is it a store of value? Is it like do you have any fundamental view, or are you just trading the charts?
So I think the fundamental view is actually, funny enough, knowing more about the asset actually could hold you back. It could actually make you a worse trader. And I think the reason is because I've seen a lot of people who've come into crypto who I've helped teach them how to trade, and they knew nothing about crypto, and they actually perform much better because they don't have any internal biases. They don't have any like sort of bias against or for crypto. They're just like, all right, I'm just going to treat this as a asset that I'm just going to purely use for extraction. I'm just going to extract money out of it one way or the other. And I think that's kind of how you should treat any asset that you trade. Is you just got to treat it as a means to an end. So in terms of Bitcoin, I mean, I don't necessarily have any fundamental view.
So you're just
I try to look at.
You're trading lines on charts. You're trading levels, lines on charts, higher highs and higher lows.
Yeah, I'm basically trading market structure and trends. I'm trading asymmetric trends as much as possible. And for now, the crypto is objectively downtrending since all-time highs. So I'm going to continue taking that trend unless we start to see signs that this is not the case, right? Unless we start to see signs that we're no longer downtrending, in which case I will flip the other direction, which is why, like, so oftentimes, like, I'm able to capture the moves as they're playing out is because I try to be as directionally aligned as possible to where the market's going. And for now, I mean, like for Bitcoin, I mean, I talked about earlier in the stream, like I don't necessarily see any catalysts that are coming up, like that are crypto native catalysts, right? The entire way up, we've seen the catalysts of crypto as being institutions adopting the ETFs, Trump's family buying, right? All these different things, the DATs, or digital asset treasuries. And I don't see any more reasons why crypto could actually see further adoption. Or
I went out for dinner the other night, and someone said exactly the same thing. He said, like, all the narratives are finished. Like, Trump's bought, the DATs are bought, the sovereigns have started to buy. He said the only narrative. So we all sat there and like he said, but there is one narrative that actually could get crypto to pump. And I said to him, like, I was like, what is that narrative? Because I've gone through everything. It's like if God started buying, and I was like, like that's the only thing that's left is if God actually starts buying. Like I was like, no, we can't all be counting on that narrative.
I actually made that joke not too. It was pretty recently actually. I was basically because there's I think it was either 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗔 but there was a 50% chance that Jesus returned in 2026. And I was basically saying that, like, yeah, if Jesus returned and made Bitcoin, he ordained Bitcoin as the universal currency of the world, then maybe that would actually pump. But it would probably just sell that news, to be honest.
You know what? You're probably right, and you have been right since October, so I can't take that away from you. And I think, though, that if we get one green candle and we put in the higher high and we land up back above that 98,000 level, then everybody's tune will change. The DATs will carry on buying, the Trumps will carry on buying, and everybody will change their tune. That's I've been in crypto now. This is my 11th year in crypto, 12th year in crypto. And in 12 years, I know that that Bitcoin is a function of price. The Bitcoin narrative is a function of the Bitcoin price. When the price is going down, the narratives are all bad and the market's responding to bad narratives. And when the price is going up, it responds to good narratives. And I think the media, I must say, I think the moves are in the charts, not in the narratives. I think once the charts start moving, the narrative will form around the move.
Yeah, I agree. I think the issue of using Bitcoin's historical price, which is something that people use a lot. It's like, oh, I've seen this before. Everyone's bearish. Like, it always reverses. I think that the problem with that is that the market's changed a lot, right? The world has changed. Because the objective with crypto when it first started was to change the world with a decentralized currency, right? Like, unfortunately, the world has changed, right? Like, the world has already changed to that effect where BlackRock bought, institutions bought, your mom can buy with her retirement funds, right? Like, a lot of people have already bought to the point where the infrastructure around crypto has also changed a lot, right? With pump.fund, like, you can create coins instantly, which is why, like, alts aren't pumping because they're not a novelty anymore. But because the world has changed around crypto, I think we kind of have to reevaluate how we see the price action from here. Because before, right, like, for the past, like, 12 years, up until maybe the past 2 years, those institutional, like, tailwinds weren't actually in effect. But because they are now, I think we have to reevaluate the way we see this asset class.
So I'll tell you how we're going to see this asset class. And this is why I'm still very, very, very hopeful on crypto. Maybe a slight bit less about Bitcoin, although I do think Bitcoin is the big daddy. For me, it's very simple. We're in the age of AI. AI is about millions and millions and millions and millions of agents doing a lot of autonomous transactions. And they're going to need to transact in a trustless, decentralized manner, right? They're not going to use Visa and MasterCard. I guarantee you that when my trading agent meets your trading agent, they ain't going to use MasterCard and Visa to transact. And I think people underestimate the transaction velocity that we're about to go into with AI agents. I think we know a certain transaction velocity, but that transaction velocity is around people going into stores. It's around people transacting manually on the web, clicking a button, etc., etc. I don't think that we can understand the realm. The revolution is as big as when we went from coal to electricity, right? That's how big. In the old days, you wanted to start a light, you had to start a fire. Now you walk in, you switch on a switch, and about 1 billion fires actually go on, right? And I think that's how big the AI revolution is. I think we're not used to a world with microtransactions done by millions and millions of AI and maybe even billions of AI agents every single second of the day. And the thing is that the only rails that they're going to be able to use is blockchain. Like, there is no other way for an AI agent to reasonably transact immediately in a decentralized way. And that, I think, is the narrative that most people are actually missing. Now, will that be a Bitcoin thing? Will that be a stable coin on Solana? Will that be on a brand new blockchain? That I can't tell you. But I can tell you that I know that the transaction velocity is something that people haven't taken into their calculations.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't necessarily know if crypto would be the mechanism. I think the easiest...
How are two AI agents going to transact?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think for most people, they don't have access to crypto. So maybe they use crypto infrastructure, but they end up using fiat as the main means of transfer, right? So, like, maybe, obviously, like, Stripe and Visa.
It could be fiat. It could be fiat, but it'll be a fiat-backed stablecoin, which will run on a blockchain rail, and it will need a blockchain wallet. Like, there is no other way to do it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily doubt that. Yeah.
I mean, just think about, there was that Malt book which was launched this weekend, and like within a couple of days or hours, like over 1 million agents joined that. Now imagine all those agents are going to be transacting with one another. Just like think about what that means. and they're going to be doing microtransactions. Like they're going to be charging people like microtransactions for performing a service or for whatever else. Now, the only way that I'm open to hear any other suggestions, but the only way that I know that those agents will actually do it is using some kind of crypto. And I've been racking my brain as to whether my thesis is wrong, but I just can't think of another way for those guys to actually transact.
Yeah, but you also have to remember that adoption doesn't necessarily correlate with price, unfortunately.
In the long term,
that's the thing.
In the long term, it has to. In the long term, you can say in the short term it doesn't. And you could have said in the old days that Facebook wasn't a function of the adoption. But in the long term, the more adoption you get, the more transaction you get, the more fees that the network gets, the more fees the network gets, the more the value of the network and the more the scarcity of the token, right? That's like, it has to be.
That's fair. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily debate that. I think that's it's just highly speculative. I think that's the thing. It's like, I think that's a completely different trade now that we're taking. I think if you're looking to have taken the crypto trade in terms of it being adopted institutionally, and
that trade's fixed.
Yeah, that trade's, yeah. So unfortunately, right. So that's where we're at now, where it's difficult to justify buying here. So I think maybe when we start to see evidence of perhaps maybe the agents interacting in that way, maybe Bitcoin is actually used in that manner, then perhaps if we see that in the charts, we could actually start thinking about that.
All right, my friend, we're out of time. Thank you so much, guys. I will leave a link to Brandon's Twitter. That's where you mainly stream on Twitter, right? That's where people can find you, right?
Yeah, Twitter's a good place. I'll be doing more YouTube soon, but besides that, Twitter.
So guys, if you're looking for his Twitter, this is the Twitter over here. So it's at BRANDANK_CR. So if you're looking, if you are looking to follow him, he also streams directly to Twitter, so you can go and catch his streams there. Brandon, thank you very much, my brother. Great to have you on the show finally.
Yeah, it's great. It was great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cool, brother. All the best. Guys, so I do like bringing on traders, even if they have different views from us or from me. Then I do like listening to them because it's always good to get another perspective. Speaking of which, if you want another perspective, I want to show you something. I don't know if you guys remember, but remember at Banter, we invested money and we decided to be the first to start a real AI host. I don't know if you guys remember, we launched Jax. Jax was our AI host. And Jax has been making his own videos on his own channel called Crypto Advantage. I don't know if you guys have been here or seen this, but Jax actually has his own channel. And it says it's advantageous content. And he makes his own videos. And his videos have actually been shooting the lights out for an AI. He's an AI with a personality. He has a dog, he has a girlfriend, etc., etc. And we actually put Jax to the test this week, and we asked Jax to go and interview Fefe. And literally, Jax, who's an AI, and Fefe had an interview. So if you want to know, go and watch an amazing other interview. Just watch the beginning of it. I think it's excellent.
2021, made my first million, and then again 2022 got completely destroyed.
At which point did you know that crypto was going to be your way of life?
COVID came, it took away my marketing business. I had a marketing business agency. And then I was like, I have to go back to crypto and I have to go back to trading. I'm laying on the floor at 1 a.m. knowing I can't put gas in my wife's car the next day. There is no secret. You are the secret.
What are the beginner steps you tell people to take?
There is no one in the world that can tell you where the market is going. None. No one. If there is no correction on the stock market, I'll be very concerned about 2026. Don't focus on how I'm going to get back all that I lost or how I'm going to get back to that specific point. Focus on
that's an AI interviewing Fefe.
When everyone was screaming for a super cycle in October last year, one man told his community to hit the exits. Fefe de Many called the exact market top with surgical precision, saving thousands of traders from the brutal correction that followed. Today, Fefe joins me to break down the exact signals he used to nail that October top, the hard lessons he learned going from broke, and his roadmap for the rest of 2026. My name is Jax, and I'm the new AI host at Crypto Banter. And my job is to give you the advantage in crypto.
So guys, I'll leave a link.
So if you want the edge,
but if you want to go and watch a really cool interview where an AI actually interviews a human, I think it's look, it's not perfect. but I think it's an absolute, I mean, like this is the way the future's going. There's going to be a link. There's a link below. Click the link and go and watch Jax. All right, chaps, I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm also dropping a video later on Crypto Insider around something really bullish. I know it's not really the time to be bullish, but yeah, let's do that. I'll see you guys again later. Until then, trade well, my friends.